Welcome GRD131 class, Desktop Publishing, and we're going to work on our char ad, and I'm going to review some processes and then also continue working on the ad. Let's review setting up our ad, and I'll even go back to the part where we had our EPS file, where it's actually in outline mode so we can see it. If we go into preview mode, we can't really see it because it's white, and we have a white circle there. And we saved it as an EPS, so when we saved it, and we actually had an Illustrator file, and we pasted it to a new file, and then we saved it as an EPS, and it got a .EPS at the end. We just called it char logo. So there's our logo. It's already saved. You can see it's saved here. I'll even save it again just in case. And we went to InDesign, and we opened it up. We kind of reset our environment here. I'll fill this up to my screen, and we created a new document. We made sure it was set to inches, so if it says 8.5 by 11 inches, that's what we want. If not, we have to go to Preferences without anything open. And even in this document here, we don't want facing pages. That's for books. We don't want a primary text frame. That's if we have one frame that we want to fill with just kind of text information. We want to change our size to 5 by 5 because that's our ad size. We want to change our margins to something closer to what we want to have around the edge, something like 1/8 of an inch. And I want to hit OK. And there's our ad. And on our first layer, we're going to put some of the background stuff. Here's our ad. We want to put kind of this black box, the black box down here, and a little border we're going to put around, maybe 1 or 2 point border around here. So we're going to put that on, and we're going to go back to InDesign. And whichever order we do it, actually the best order to do it would be draw the big box first. So I'm just going to draw a big box around the whole ad. So it kind of snaps to the end. And make sure it's 5 by 5. You'll see that up here. And then we're going to put a stroke on it. Now mine is putting a stroke by default, and I'll just make it a little thicker, like 2 point. But one thing you want to do is go over to the stroke palette and make sure that it's set to a line stroke to inside, so it doesn't go outside the border. It has a little drop shadow on the page here, but if you hit this preview button, there you can see it's kind of on the inside here. So that's what we want. And we're going to have 2 more boxes we're going to put on here, so I'll take it out of preview, and I'll just kind of click off of this right now. And I'll just use this other box tool, and I'll start in the upper corner and get it as close as you can to the 0, 0. If it's not right, we'll fix it. And we're going to do something, we're going to almost make it like 0.88 or something. If it's a little more, that's okay, because we probably need it a little more. And we're also going to change this so it fills with black. And then I'm actually going to go here and change the stroke to none. I don't want a stroke on this. And make sure you get off that tool and just click the selection tool. Might have to make it even a little longer to fit our logo in based on the way our logo was created. And then I can even do an option drag and copy this thing down here, so long as it's the right size. And again, you want to check, is it 5 inches? Make sure it's 5 inches. This one, make sure it's 5 inches. And then I'll click on here and I'll drag it, and it's going to be somewhere around 3/8. And we could just get it kind of close. If it's 3/9, that's fine. Might need a little more space. So we have our border that's going around the whole ad. We have our box up top and a box down here. The best thing to do in InDesign is to basically lock this layer and call this layer, you could just call it borders boxes, just so you know what's on that layer. Then I'll make a new layer, and notice that this one shows up in blue when you draw things. Even if I unlock this one, when I click on things, see if they have kind of like a blue line around them? Anything that I create here is going to have a kind of a blue line by default to start, and a lot of Adobe programs do that. But this layer that I made now is going to have a red kind of selection on it when I make it. Now, it's not a stroke, it's just a selection for the layer. So I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to call it graphics, because we're going to throw some graphics on here. And I'll hit OK. And the graphics we're going to have on here, and I'll go back and I'll lock this too, so that I don't grab any of these by mistake, or I don't put things in boxes. Even though these are boxes, you can actually put graphics in them by accident. So on this layer, I'm going to do a file place, and that's Adobe's version of import, and I'll bring in the EPS. And you'll have this loaded kind of cursor. That's why I locked these other ones, because I don't want to put them in any kind of box by accident. So I'll just click here. There's my logo. Now mine looks kind of not very nice. You can see how it's low resolution. That's because by default, it keeps it in low resolution under display performance. I think we changed that in the lab computers, but this one is on typical display, so I'll make it high quality. And I'll move it in there, and you can see it's too big for the area. Now keep in mind that with graphics here, and I'll move this thing out of the way, and I'll even zoom in a little. Keep in mind that there's a bounding box which is the frame. It's actually the frame, what they call it, and that's the frame that the logo's in. And there's the frame, because if you make the frame smaller, the graphic doesn't really change. So I'll make the frame smaller. And I'll even make the frame kind of go to the edge on each side, and I'll leave it right where it is there. Now that's the frame. Now the graphic, if I click on the graphic in the middle, that little circle, you can see the bounding box goes way out there. Now you can do a couple things. You could hold Shift and scale it that way, and that scales the graphic. That works. You can also use the percentages up here, and maybe I'll take it down a little smaller, like 8/8. And you can see it's about at the 1/8 of an inch line. I'll even nudge it over a little. That's probably pretty good. I'll even nudge it up a little. I don't want it too close to the top, too close to the bottom. I want it to look even. I'll even go in preview here and click off it. And that looks pretty good. That's not too bad. I mean, obviously it's a little closer up here, but considering the original ad, you know, they had it really close up there. So I think what we have is okay. The only other graphic we're going to need on here is going to be our dog. So we're going to bring in a TIFF file, which is going to be a grayscale graphic. Let me zoom out a little. And again, I'll make sure nothing's selected. Make sure this thing isn't selected, because you could place the graphic inside that frame by mistake. So click off and make sure nothing's selected. And we're going to go File, Place, and we're going to bring in our dog. And I'll bring in the bulldog because it's just kind of a cute looking dog as far as getting attention for an ad. And I'm going to make the frame, the first thing you'll see is the frame. It's red because that's the layer. And I'll just drag it almost to where the guides are. Actually, I should show the guides. I'll drag it out to the margins, which were 1/8 of an inch. Now you don't have to bring things to there, but that's kind of, we don't want to go past there. Now the graphic is a little small. It's kind of floating. I'm going to click in here. Now again, I could grab on the corner and scale it, or I could use percentages up here. I could just kind of go up like that, or I could use these to just find, you know, maybe like 125%. And again, it's cropped because it's going outside the frame, so I'm going to move it so it's inside the frame. And again, when you need to change those things, they have all this fitting stuff, fit frame proportionally, and all this kind of stuff is kind of, it takes a little time to get your head around. So if you want to do things manually, that's fine too. You just click on the graphic and scale it and hold Shift and do what you would normally do. Now one thing I'm going to do here that I didn't mention in class is while I'm on the graphic, and this is important, you want to click on the transformation point in the middle, the reference point, because I'm going to flip it. They have a little flip icon here. I say, what are you going to flip it for? Now, normally you wouldn't flip images, photographs, because they're going to be backwards. But why would I flip this? Well, let's see why. One of the reasons I was thinking, and it doesn't mean this is the best decision, but I like the idea because there's kind of this logo up here where your eye kind of comes in, and it's kind of very distinctive. I like the fact that if you move the dog to that side, if you kind of it creates kind of a movement, like almost like this kind of Z movement here. Your eye kind of moves down from the upper left and kind of moves down on an angle here, and I kind of like that movement. And it doesn't mean you have to do that, but I'm going to try that out, and I'll even move them over a little bit here. That way it will kind of move you down to the website address and things like that. Your eye kind of comes up here and gets drawn to the dog. So I'm going to leave it like that for now, and I'll just kind of put it on preview. I like that. You don't have to do it. You could leave it the other way, and that gives me a place here to put a little headline. And what I'll do is I'll go back up to my, and actually before I do that, one thing to point out, as I was hovering over links, keep in mind that this graphic is a link, and this graphic, EPS, is a link. If I move those from their original location, they're going to come up as missing links. So they have to be linked. So this InDesign file is linked to other graphics that are inside this file. So when you send this file somewhere, you're going to need the links. They're part of the file because they link to it, just like you'd have a web page and you'd have the graphics that go with it. Unless you exported it as a PDF, then you could send the PDF. But right now, these are part of it. So there are links that go along with it. That's why they're called links. And be careful not to move them or change names or anything. And you can always relink them if you need to. So those are the links, the graphics that are in there. I'm going to go back up to layers, and I'm going to lock this layer so I don't mess with anything here. And we're going to put some text on the page. So I'll make a new layer, and I'll call it text. And this is just all the text, and I could just throw a headline. I'm going to take my text tool. Now in InDesign, you have to draw boxes. Everything's about boxes in InDesign. And whether you're in preview mode or if you go back here where you see this kind of stuff, which is sometimes harder to see, you could probably work in preview mode. I'm just going to make a box here, and you can see this layer is green, and I'm not seeing the layer, so I might go back here so I could kind of see that box. And I'm just going to go back to my ad, and it says orthopedic dog beds. So I'm going to type that in, go back to InDesign, and I'm going to type it if I can. And you don't have to do it in all caps like they did. You could kind of leave it in, now it's in a basic font right now that they used a kind of a sans serif font. I would say something like a myriad bold or something like that. We might stick with that just because that's something we have by default. So I'm just going to stick with that right now since that's what they're using. Now when I highlight this text, I'm seeing all this. What is all this stuff up here? This is paragraph editing. So what I want to do, since I have the text highlighted and I want to change the font, even though I can over here, I want to go to character. The A is character, this backwards P thing is paragraph formatting, and we're not really doing a paragraph because we just have one line. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to change this from minion, and I'm going to look for myriad if I can. That should be under M, and that should be on the max. That's a pretty standard font that comes with Illustrator, so I'll just make it bold. And I'll do orthopedic dog beds, and I'll just kind of increase my size a little bit. Now I might do this on 2 lines. I'm not sure what I might do right now. But I'll make it go across and just kind of go in preview and see what it looks like. And it's something like that. You know, just to look at the way they had the ad up here. They had it all caps and they had it really crammed to the top. And I don't think I want to do that. So I'm going to keep it. Maybe I'll center it. And if I'm going to center it, I should go back into my regular view here and stretch this out to the margin and stretch this to the margin. Because that way if I center it, it'll be centered on the page. I could click in here. And they have center tools in here, or they have center tools under paragraph, either place. You could center it here. And I might tighten the tracking a little. We talked about kerning and tracking. Kerning is between pairs. Tracking is all the letters. That's right here. This is tracking. And I might go up here and just kind of make it like a minus, I don't know, maybe a minus 25. Why? Because it's a headline. And headlines, you kind of see, your eyes kind of need to put it all together. So when the letters go together like that, it's just easier for your eyes to take in. So I'll track it together, and plus that also gives me the ability to make it a little bit bigger. So I'll maybe go 36 on here and see how that looks. It's not going all the way across, but it kind of goes nice with the logo here. And notice, unlike the ad, I have a little distance here, so that my eye kind of hit, you know, it's in the upper third. My eye kind of hits that orthopedic dog beds. That's kind of the, you know, the headline. That's where my eye goes here. And in terms of proximity, you know, it should be down close to the dog, because that's what it's showing here. So orthopedic dog beds is kind of the headline. That's what we're advertising for this particular ad. That's what we're selling, or that's what it appears they're selling. They're trying to get people to come in for orthopedic dog beds. And also, they have little descriptions of the beds. They're available at both stores. I don't know if that's necessary. They have the model. We'll put that there. We'll put the price. And, you know, we'll leave the stuff they had. I'm not sure which one this is, but we'll just use one of them. And they have the locations with phone numbers, and they also have the website and hours. And there's not a lot of space at the bottom here, and I think it would be better to just have the website address rather than the hours. I don't know if people are really going to go back to an ad to check out the hours. If you're going to check out an hours to go somewhere, I don't even know if you need phone numbers. I don't know if people are going to call this place. If there's a website there, people are going to go to the website. People aren't going to be calling phone numbers from the ad. So I don't even agree that you need phone numbers on here for a store that you're going to go to. I don't know how many people will call a store about orthopedic dog beds. If there's a website, they're going to go to the website. So I would put Allentown, Bethlehem, and then put www.chaar.us, and I would skip all this stuff. There's no reason, I think, to have all these hours in here and things like that. No, it may be helpful. So, you know, there's some debate here. People might, you know, see it on a Sunday and be like, oh, look, they're open Sunday, 11 to 5, let's go. You know, that's possible. But a lot of people check websites for this kind of stuff now rather than checking ads. People breeze over ads really fast. So I don't know if, you know, if you're in the market for an orthopedic dog bed, you might be like, oh, they have it at Chaar. And you might check out the Chaar website. So I don't know if you'd necessarily do that anymore, where you'd be calling phone numbers of the Allentown store, the Bethlehem store, checking the hours and all that from an ad that's in the newspaper. People don't have a lot of time to be reading the newspaper or even checking out ads. So I'm going to skip that. I'm just going to figure people are time challenged. They'll go to the website. So that's what we're going to do. Let me take a break here, and then we'll continue with part 2 of the video.